This is Reality Dispatch, written by Jim Mintz.
There was a dog barking out in the street that only he could hear at such an ungodly hour. It was 3 a.m. His wife was asleep. So too were his 3 children. He had checked on them moments before he sat down at his computer and stared at the empty page. It was his job to fill it. In fact, he was to have had it filled the day prior. A report was due on the analysis from the evidence of the colonial inquest. The executive of the Department of the District Attorney required a summary for discussion, whether or not they would proceed with a prosecution. He was to use expert evidence gathered from the multitude of witnesses. The media wanted a prosecution. Robert John McManus. The recommendation from the coroner was a prosecution, but the evidence was circumstantial. There was a heavy reliance placed on the summary, and Evan couldn't bring himself to do it. Even though the task kept him up all night, his lack of diligence bringing him out of bed at 3 a.m, he hovered his fingers over the keypad and began to type. He wrote for hours on end, not stopping until daybreak when the cockatoos rang out and the garbage truck welcomed the morning with the crushing of the wine bottles from a weekend well spent, thanks to the raucous neighbors. Evan continued to type even as his daughter tugged on his boxer shorts at the kitchen table and begged him for breakfast. He was conscious of his wife making the cereal in the bowls, a job usually reserved for him, as he continued to type out what she thought was his report due that morning at 9. "I have to do this, or it's my ass, Corinne," he yelled at her as she questioned why he wasn't holding up his end of the bargain to provide for the children in their morning routine. He always drove them to school and left the house 15 minutes before the bell rang. But not on this morning. She was angry at him for lumping her with this burden so late in the routine, as he continued to pore over the words that filled the pages that he was to present to the district attorney. At 8, with 45 minutes until his train would be due, he sent himself an email with the attached report for printing. He CC'd his assistant and shared with her a request to have 5 copies printed and ready on his desk for his arrival. When he arrived at the office at 8:57, the printed pages with their freshly plastered out ink were waiting for him. Just as he had requested, he snatched them up and tapped them on his desk to neaten their fold. Kyla, his PA, had already gone to the trouble of stapling the reports for the individual members. "What is all that?" she asked as he passed her on his way to the elevators to take the lift up to the 12th floor. "My report on Robert John McManus," he said. She gave him a look. She was out of line, as usual. Having never learned the hierarchy in which she was placed within the organization, he knew he should be worried, but he didn't have time to decipher what it was he was to be worried about. He rode the elevator up to the 12th floor and waited in reception for VG to give him permission to enter the boardroom. "They'll see you now," she announced as Evans stood and proceeded down the hall, past the executive kitchenette and into the boardroom, where they all sat, facing the doorway in expectation of his entry. He began handing out his report to the executive, who mulled over the contents. He then stopped and, facing them at the foot of the large oak desk in front of a freshly wiped whiteboard, awaited their response. They read his work in silence. Then Benjamin, the senior counsel, broke the silence. "Evan," he began. Evan raised an eyebrow. "What in God's good name is this pile of shit?" The others looked up, also wanting an explanation. "I'm not sure I follow," Evan said. "I'm not sure any of us follow, Mr. Matthews," Victor, the district attorney, said. "Where is the summary of the coronial inquiry?" he asked. "This is it," Evan said. "This?" Victor protested. Benjamin held up his pages like it was the asswipe of a dog that had just soiled a fence post. "This is your summary?" "Yeah," Evan said defiantly. Benjamin looked down at the words and began to read aloud. She leaned forward and embraced his solid chest, chiseled from the finest of steel. She knew he was a specimen none could replicate. She wanted to make him more of a man with her love. Only she knew the goodness that lay in his character, but there was also a bad side, a dark side. And on it goes. "Evan, I'll ask again, what the living shit is this?" "My summary," Evan said. "Is there a problem, Evan?" Victor asked. "No problem, sir," Evan said, his face as straight as an arrow. Well, this is not a summary. It appears to be some form of romantic fiction of some description. Have you made a mistake? No mistake, sir, Evan said, his heartbeat racing. The moment he had anticipated finally arriving, his life upending before his very eyes, the fate of his livelihood and that of his family's in full swing. Now there would be no going back. The wing was coming, and Evan would be experiencing how hard or how soft it would land on his jaw. This is my resignation letter, Evan said. I hate working for you. I hate the work that we do. I hate you all personally. I think you're sharks. I want to write romance novels, and the only way I could be forced to type on the empty page is with the pressure this report put me under. But I should be thanking you because, thanks to not doing my work properly, I now know this, and only this is exactly what I want to do with my life. So, I guess, thank you, Evan said, his proudest moment. He was finally able to break free of the stranglehold this office had had over his professional life for 13 years. Get the hell out of my boardroom and start packing your desk, Victor instructed. Yes, sir, Evan said as he turned to leave the room. His face was red, his legs were jelly, but his heart was full. Another blow would be coming later that evening, this time from his wife. But he knew what the hits felt like now, and he anticipated the swing.
For more stories of fact-based fiction, head to jimmins.substack.com.